Okay, so thank you everybody for joining. Nia is on a silent retreat this week, so she asked for me to help host this. And my name is Barbara Reynolds, and I'm here with astrologer extraordinaire, Brian Sandy. And so I was thinking what I'll do is I'm going to mute everybody, and then he'll tell us some information that's whatever's happening. And if you have a question, just unmute yourself, because by muting everybody, just the background noise will just go away, which is lovely. Okay, so Brian, it's a full moon today. Uh-oh, I muted you too, Brian. You have to unmute yourself. Sorry.
My mute button looks
there
like...
you go. Perfect. Okay, there we go.
Oh, full moon is always fun, but it's also called a corn moon, kind of like harvesting of corn, according to the lore.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so it's like a harvest moon in a way. And it's Pisces Virgo, which are kind of very powerful signs during this time of the year. And Pisces is a water sign, and Virgo an earth sign. Full moons always emphasize the polarity of our planetary system, because the moon is on one side of the earth and the sun is on the other. So it's a maximum 180 degrees apart. That's called an opposition, but that's also the full moon. And it is said that the Buddha was always meditating during full moons, because you have both perspectives represented as maximum as you can, the 180-degree angle apart. So it's a full awareness moon anyway. So it's a full moon with full awareness, and it's in Pisces, which is a sign that includes all signs. So when we go through the month, when we go through all the signs, because the moon goes through each sign every 2.5 days, that when we finally get to Pisces, we're basically including all of the other signs. It's like the summary. It's the last sign on the block, so to speak. So that's when we become more spiritual. This is the idea, because it's no longer the physical world. So it's okay to be spaced out during a Pisces full moon, because you're supposed to be, And all these images and spirits flying around, and inspirations, imagination, wanderings of all kinds. But if you study astrology, each has its own sign and a glyph, and Pisces is a sign of duality. So the two fishes are going two different directions. One is spirit and one is the flesh, or the world. So when you're faced with an archetype of Pisces, you have to make the choice between being a spiritual person or a worldly person. If you just choose the worldly, they always say that then the spirit dies. So you don't really want to do that one. But if you choose the spirit, you galvanize the world or the flesh, and you get both. So the answer always with Pisces is spiritual. So what is a true spirit? And the other kind of archetype word that they use for Pisces is I believe. What do you believe? Faith, all that invisible stuff, which is a Pisces archetype. So that's in contrast now when we have the sun in Virgo, which is just the opposite, literally, because Virgo is always emphasizing precise, specific, focus kind of energy. So it's like the very specific sign is Virgo, and the very general sign is Pisces. Einstein was a Pisces, Edgar Cayce was a Pisces. But when you have the Virgo contrasting with Pisces, you have to put the two together. So in the spiritual world, Virgo is the sign of service. Who or what your service, and your discrimination, your discretion, your power to serve a higher being. And Pisces is the sign generally called the Savior sign. They say that Jesus was the Pisces. And Virgo is more likely the master, the adept, the one who serves the higher purpose. So you can either serve the world or you can serve the higher spirit. So that's what we're dealing with today, when this pull of energy is drawing us in two different directions. And it's well known that during full moons, schizophrenia is a common ailment, because people don't know how to put the two things together. And so when we're dealing with astrology, you want to center between Virgo and between and Pisces in the earth. So then you got it together. The other thing that's happening with this full moon is Neptune is in Pisces, and it's behind the moon. It's not exactly in conjunction, but it's in Pisces, so it's kind of presiding over Pisces, as though Neptune is watching the moon grow and evolve. So it's a very fertile moon, a very fruitful moon, and Neptune is like a presiding telepathic influence that's happening over that. So that starts the month. And like I said, it's in about maybe I think 7 hours from now it peaks out. And what you don't want to do is, like I always have the little phrase, follow through and don't undo, which is what happens in Pisces, you might be having a project or a goal or a destination, and then when it gets into Pisces, you kind of give up on it. You undo yourself. That's the lower side of Pisces. But instead, you want to follow through. Or like if you're in a marathon and you went 25 miles and there's one more to go, I don't want to do it anymore. So that's what happens when you have Pisces come up. But it's a beautiful sign, and the duality effect is making it important to make decisions. So that's the first day. Here we are, and we go into that. So then it goes into, if you take the whole sequence of the month of September, we go to the new moon, which would be on the 17th, and that's also. I just want to tell you what this word Cazimi, Cazimi, it's called the heart of the sun. When the moon is going to be in Virgo with the sun in Virgo, it's going to be right in the heart of the sun, right in the center of the sun. And that's usually a very powerful, strong energy when the new moon starts. So the full moon is a peaking energy. We're starting the month off at a high level, full awareness. What we're going to do, we're launching our ship somewhere. And then by the time we get 2 weeks later, we'll start a whole new slate or a whole new adventure when the Virgo comes in. So there's a lot of things that happen between now and then at the end of the month, which is another fantastic thing that's going to happen then. That's where I lead it off right now, Barbara.
So about the full moon for tonight, when you were describing the difference between the energy of the Virgo and in the Pisces, and you were saying always choose the spiritual, and Virgo has the force behind it. So could you use the energy of Virgo to be really clear on your spirituality and expanding into your spirituality? Is that what you mean when there's that force behind it, but where you're choosing to be in the spiritual realm with Pisces?
Yeah, there's a phrase biblically that says faith without works is dead. Faith is the belief of the Pisces, and the works is Virgo. You just can't say I just believe and then wander around. You have to kind of follow through with a specific, I call it a laser beam, because Virgo's always a laser beam effect. And
so this could be really powerful then, since we have the laser beam and we have this really deep energy of the Pisces. So if we're focused on what we're doing, this could really launch us. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay, that's awesome. And that's all happening tonight. So if we start to set our intention and align with that tonight, then it would follow through within the month?
That's right. And like there's a higher level to the Virgo component as well, which is, I call it the personal alchemy or the personal magic of someone. And because when you start using your higher level Virgo, now you're working with the magic of the world, you're working with the elementals, nature, and things like that. It's an earth sign. And so it's sort of your precursor to becoming a master, an adept, or someone of high level efficiency. So they work together. The Virgo and the Pisces, earth and water obviously does work together. So it gets exciting. They're both called mutable signs, mutable or flexible signs. That's why if you know a Pisces person, they kind of almost have an ambivalence. It's okay this way, it's okay that way, it's okay this. Virgo has a different kind of ambivalence too. They're always adjusting, assimilating, and things like that. One thing I want to point out is that whenever we have Virgo that comes in a month, it's called, I call it the archetype of health. Virgo is classically related to the concept of health and healing. So it's the month of health, if you wanted to celebrate it that way. And when I study that, over the years, I start to realize, and I'm sure many of you who talk to me know what I talk about. It's when you love something, when you work at something you really love, you're probably going to be very healthy. It's when you're working at something you don't love that your illness is going to come in. So this is a time for all of us to to fine tune the our lives in the terms of what it is that we focus on in our health. So it has to do with diet and hygiene and service and all kinds of things like that. I should have. Oop. Can you hear that? Yeah. Let me hold on.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right. Sorry about that. I should have had all my butlers and servants in that. You know, that's what actually butlers and servants is kind of a Virgo concept. Because if you go back in the old books, it's almost a touchy subject, but Virgo would be the sign in which you are indentured to something to serve a master, like a slave or something. But that's why today we're talking a little bit higher than that, because we're talking about, who you serve in the higher sense. But anyway, Virgo is a sign of health, and that's the thing you want to focus on this month. Any questions around that one? No. Okay. So this is a phenomenal month for a lot of reasons, because, as you well know, we've had a lot of planets all in retrograde. People have heard me say that before, right? And I've coined a new phrase this month called retrograde euphoria. And that's because just about all the planets, all the outer planets, Mars will join them in about a week, will all be retrograde. It's like a big convention with no reflection on politics. All the planets don't know what to do. They're all waiting for some instruction. They're all waiting for something, because retrograde usually is a review time. So you got Pluto, you got Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. They're all in this most fantastic alignment of all being retrograde. So during this month, at a key point toward the middle and toward the end, the Sun in Virgo, which is what we're cultivating right now, will actually be what I learned a new kind of a phrase in astrology. It's called a conversation. That when the Sun goes and makes a trine to all those outer planets, it's like the big leader goes up and talks to every one of them and gets a coalition going. So it's a conversation where Virgo is basically the leader of the pack, the leader of the thing. But what happens on September 12th is a really big day, because Jupiter, the biggest planet, will be the first one to break from the retrograde. And I have this scenario or theory, or however you want to look at it, where Jupiter is the politician planet anyway, so it's a political thing that's going to happen. And then at the end of the month, on September 29th, Saturn, which has also been retrograde, decides it wants to follow suit. So Jupiter goes first, and then Saturn at the end of the month decides to go forward too. But in our story, in the movie, this is like two Navy SEALs going off in different oceans, agreeing that they're going to meet together at some point in a few months from now, which would be in the end of December, right after Christmas. So Jupiter and Saturn are now apart, but they're moving forward, and they're going to conjoin, like I said, right before the turn of next year, and it'll be in the sign Aquarius. This is really huge because you probably heard me talk about the synodic cycle, SYNODIC, which is the presidential cycle. Jupiter, Saturn converge every 19 years, affecting politics and those who are in leadership, like presidents. And it generally has a kind of a dire effect of whether presidents survive or not. It's been going on ever since Abraham Lincoln. But in my mind, the Jupiter and Saturn movement of this month, in that sort of covert operation, are coming together at a distant point. Something's happening. It's like a conspiracy. I don't want to put a negative thing, but it's like a conspiracy or a union that they've decided on, and the whole world will be changed forever. So in my musings, I usually say things like, September will be the month in which presidential politics is decided. The election won't matter. It's already decided in September. So that's because of these figures are going to start moving forward. So there's also, so that would be, Saturn is in the 29th, Jupiter's on the 12th. And then we have another big player going on. That's where there's somebody out there's in Aries, right? Who was the Aries out there? Well, I see Amelia's on. So Does everybody know about Mars going retrograde in Aries? Have any play on that? Anybody out there?
No, I don't know anything about that, Brian.
Oh boy, you gotta listen to this one. All right, this is fun. It's fun, but it's also okay. Every sign has a planet that rules it. Aries is a sign of the independent leader, the one that goes ahead, and Mars is the ruler of Aries. Well, lo and behold, Mars moved into Aries a little while ago, and it's going to be there uncommonly for until the end of the year and then some. So Mars is going to be in its own home until the end of the year. But it's also going to go retrograde on the 7th of September. Huge turning point in the world's politics and the world's energy. Mars is the warrior planet. So, kind of witnessing these days, they're all talking about you don't want to play up the violence that's going on, but that's kind of a Mars thing. So when it goes retrograde, then what happens? And then, if you know about aspects, well, Mars will be squaring all those planets that are in Capricorn and like Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. So we have a conflict scenario. So what happens on September 7th is that Mars goes retrograde, joins the pack briefly until the 12th when Jupiter takes ahead. So even for myself, when I start thinking about the Aries thing, it's really true. You start thinking of yourself more. You want to think of your own personal power. Mars is a good place in Aries. So you become the warrior, a fighting spirit for what's right and things like that. But then, like, if we're going to take a page out of the world news, governments and political structures and big money tend to fall under the archetype of Capricorn. So Mars, as be the warrior, is going to try to beat up on the governmental officials, or not the officials, but the structure. So there'd be a whole tendency for governmental structures to fall apart. So that sounds like a negative thing, but in astrology, that would be a Mars square conflict structure, rebuilding. So the other thing that when the beginning of this year happened, everything lined up in Capricorn, even more than it is right now. And I remember saying that was the time for this. The 2020 was supposed to be, in my mind, the idea of world initiation, because Capricorn is an earth sign, and it brings in the material, it brings into the material world your spiritual ideals. So whatever happens since January, including the virus stuff and all that, has to do with the earth trying to reconcile their physical bodies with spiritual information. And it would seem that not many people are really getting the picture. We're supposed to be initiated into a new world, not in a negative way, but in a very positive way. So this comes up as one of the issues of struggling. So Venus will be in Cancer right now at the beginning of this month, and it will be opposing all those Capricorn planets. So what we have starting to form is a T-square. That means Mars in Aries, Venus in Cancer, and all those other planets in Capricorn forms a T. And the only one that's missing is Libra. But Libra comes along at the end of September. We have a grand square. Now, anybody know what the grand square means? Nope. Oh, no responses. Okay. Sid, you know. Okay.
Sid can't remember all this stuff, Brian. You're amazing.
No, I don't know.
I forget.
Well, thank you. All this stuff is like, I've been doing this for so long, but it is kind of amazing month because out of all of the mix, there's going to be 2 grand trines going on. Now, a grand trine is the best thing that astrology can have, because it means all the planets are lined up in an equilateral triangle. In this case, it would be Uranus and Taurus, the Sun in Virgo, and all the other Virgo, Mercury, and then the Capricorn planet. So that's a super abundant, positive, energetic to relate to the physical world, because it's an earth sign. And it's going to happen again. It's going to happen twice in the same month. So I'm looking forward to the positive of that. And all these squares are just growth pictures. You got to work at it. There's a pile of boxes. You got to move them. It's not a big deal, but I don't want to do it. But the squares will bring in new principles. So I get excited because by the time we get to the end of September, the whole world would be changed. Believe it or not, we're only at September 1st, but it's going to happen that quickly. like a big movement that goes ahead, like our Earth itself is going to move. We're reading a lot about electromagnetic fields and things like that, and how our solar system is basically in a new part of space in terms of the universe. We're no longer in the old part. So that's why there's a lot of really big changes that happen with environment and things like that, climate change and all kinds of stuff. So so we don't have any precedent to know what to do next. Like astronauts that are sent off into space, they don't know what to do when they're out there. So anyway.
So Brian, I have a question. Will this be something that we'll recognize, that the people of Earth will recognize this big change? Like the common person, you know what I'm saying? Or do we have to be astrologers to see this big change?
I would hope so, but because I get the feeling, I've been watching a lot of European astrologers and stuff like that, and they're very optimistic about people waking up. I mean, I think that's it. And like, wait a minute, this is not right, whatever. And because of that movement that's involved with the cardinal signs, the Aries, Capricorn, Libra, and Cancer, it's an executive decision on some higher level above all the governments anyway. It's a spiritual thing.
Okay.
Right?
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Anybody else got a question?
Well, so I think you just answered Nia's first question, where she said, I'm hearing that people are starting to wake up, recognizing how much censorship is happening and that things aren't what they have believed them to be. Is there anything about that for this month? But I think that you were just explaining, like, a lot of that's going to be revealed.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like a sprinkling of energy through the month of high-powered potency. It's like you can't miss it. You really shouldn't miss it if you can't, but you really shouldn't, because there's so much potential.
So Brian,
yes.
Brian, sometimes when you turn to the left, we can't hear you. Is that happening for anybody else too? Like, it's only when you go to the left.
Yes.
Over there. Yeah, over there we can't hear you, Brian.
Sorry.
Yeah, it might be just the audio.
Hey,
Yeah, so I don't understand, but every place else we could hear you.
I'm sorry.
Choose the right, always, Brian. Choose the right.
That sounds like a political thing. No, okay.
No, I didn't mean that in a political way.
No, I get all excited because I probably talk too fast about this stuff, but there's so much information. Besides, there's I don't know how many people are into the Archangel Michael, but that's also at the end of this month. That there's a festival called Michaelmas, like Christmas, and that happens on the 29th, when Saturn's going to move forward, and it's going to be a big square. That stuff happening right at the end. And I didn't mention yet the Supergalactic Center. Supergalactic Center has become a favorite item for me because that is a point in space that is about 1.5 degrees of Libra. So what happens in September? Well, we have the equinox. We have the fall equinox. So every time the sun goes into Libra, it's actually also aligning with this point in space called the Supergalactic Center. Supergalactic Center is where all the neighboring galaxies of our system, in our Milky Way system, they all seem to point toward one point in space. There's 1.5 degrees of Libra, and they look like dolphins all going towards a common point. And it's where we convene to our galactic beingness, where we're not just humans, but we're galactic beings and things like that. So once a year, we get kind of a download of a super balancing harmonic. So if you want to kind of study that point of view, it's a turning point every year. The supergalactic thing I was working with probably about 10 years ago at the most. And every time we come to the equinox, it's always a turning point because the seasons turn. But in this particular equinox, it establishes a different rhythm cosmically, almost as though you can say that your energy is being recalibrated with the heavens, as opposed to just the earth.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that's when, Brian, the end of the month?
Yep. That's at September 22nd.
On the equinox.
Yeah, right when the equinox comes in. So that's like, I mean, traditionally and classically, everybody celebrates the equinox, but there's this added feature where you're being aligned with the heavens. And I can see that coming. I've been seeing it coming even more so this year. You look out over the trees, you look over the mountains or whatever, you can see like a new, I can anyway, I mean, I see a new dimension that's evolving around the earth. So I can't wait for this particular equinox to come in because, you know, there's a lot of questions to ask the heavens, you know. But,
Yeah.
and it's in the sign Libra, which is quintessentially the sign of balance and equilibrium and, you know, peace and harmony. So that's a good one to consider. Kazemi, so that's a good thing too, because Kazemi comes up during the new moon. So here's the question I ask everybody. Is everybody doing the work that they like to do? Is everybody doing what it is they really think is true in their life? You know, because this is the month to kind of, it's not go to the doctor, but maybe not go to the doctor, and check out your own, you know, molecular powers. What's that? Oh, I thought somebody said. No, it's I can't emphasize that more than that, because the Virgo is the Virgin, purity, and discrimination, discretion. It's an Earth sign. I call it laser beam sign. In kind of recent old time astrology, if you can put that together, the sign Virgo is also ruled by the asteroids. They call the goddesses, the Pallas, Juno, Vesta, and Ceres. And I call it the eyes of the zodiac. So we see with our eyes, but we also see with our will. In medical astrology, Virgo rules the abdomen and rules like where the belly button is and things like that. And that's where, according to legend, that's where we see. We see from our will. We don't necessarily see from our eyes. We're seeing from another place. So that's why this year, this month, it's like an elixir to sort of cleanse your system so you can see through the illusions of the will. And it's a beautiful kind of metaphor. So in medical astrology, Virgo is opposite Pisces, which is our full moon. And I've always been fond of saying, if you have a bellyache, rub your feet. And everybody looks at me funny. Well, because in medical astrology, polarities affect one another. Like, let's say if you're a Leo that rules the heart, you rub your ankles, Aquarius, because it's a polar opposite effect. If you have a headache, you address your kidneys. That's Aries, Libra. So all of these polarities will come out true, especially during full moons. So it's an excellent time to heal yourself. The other thing that Pisces represents is the immune system. And that's a big thing, because apparently the immune system is the whole ball of wax in this world. If your immunity breaks down, then you're in trouble, right? So how do you develop immunity? Well, that's a whole other thing, because Pisces, remember, we started out by saying it's an abstract sign, if you will. It's a spirit sign. It's not about the physical world. And yet in medical astrology, it's the lymphatic system. It's your power to resist disease, your immune system, and things like that. But you get that from a spiritual point of view. So I wonder if people would have like a whole month off just studying the spiritual life of how they can be immune to the effects of the world. Can't we address that to the virus and stuff, you know? So it might be get some very interesting insights through this full moon tonight about how to stay immune or become even healthier in that way. So there's a lot of applications. I'm not off to the right. So, if you see
So
me,
it sounds like it's going to be a really big month, but we're really learning how to balance this, like be very, very spiritual, be open up to that, and we'll be supported in that. But what you kept saying, like when you said, if there's a stack of boxes, you have to move them. So you have to be fairly focused and do the work or put the effort in.
yeah, you do. That's the work, the Virgo part. So, you know that Walt Disney thing, you whistle while you work, you know, when the little, was it
Yeah.
the said, do. You know, I mean, when was the last time you were whistling while you were working in a day? You know, I've been doing that all the time now. I just do my calculations or something. I'm happy as a clam, you know, but that's because you're focused on what I believe, like what God wants you to do.
Right.
One of the hard things is that if you're not doing what God wants you to do, you're in trouble. So, you know, so it's a clarification. So this month we have a Virgo, my Virgo. Diana just joined us. She's the Virgo. I know everybody's sign almost. Oh, Jay, what's your sign, Jay?
I'm a Libra.
Oh,
October
great.
6th.
You got a balancing point. Yeah, all right. We know Sid, and we know Diana, and
I have to introduce Brooke, Brian.
oh, well, that's Brooke.
Hi.
And Brooke is a Virgo.
I know that. Yeah, yeah, we've heard. Hi, Brooke. I never even knew you. I've heard of you many times, of course.
I know. It's nice to put a
There
face
you
to
are.
the name.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, nice to see you there. I was wondering who that other person was,
Yes.
right off to your side there. That's great.
And it looks like we have a Taurus as well. KB is a Taurus.
Who's Taurus?
Wait, I just saw it on the chat.
Oh, this Charlotte too. Hi, Charlotte.
KB.
Hi, Brian.
Oh boy,
Aries.
she has lots of questions about astrology.
Oh, KB is Kat. She said, hi, it's Kat.
She's Taurus. Hi, Kat. Are you there? Oh, you're
Yeah.
muted. Oh, okay. Everybody's muted except me. That's crazy.
Hi, Brian. Sorry, yeah, I'm muted.
Oh, there you are. Okay,
Didn't want to hear my cat screaming in the background.
sure.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so can I ask another question?
Mia, right?
So this is from Nia. I've heard there will be global financial reset. How will this go? And is it to the betterment of the world or just putting more in the hands of those who have plenty? So do you have any insight around the global financial reset?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Because I'm starting to see the well, it's kind of like when we all go. Let's say you start in the beginning of the year in January, and then all the Capricorn comes around. That's all about the world structure and money and all of it. And you go, what are all those planets going to do in that sign? Because it creates a new chemistry. So basically, nobody was prepared for whatever that new chemistry was, and it's still going on. It's still prevailing. But like I said, this month, when some of these squares kick in and then the grand trines kick in, there'll be like a eye-popping awareness of how the structure of financial world, the military-industrial, all that kind of political stuff, will kind of start breaking down at the seams. You'll see all the weaknesses. You'll see it'll be like a massive exposure. And that's just this month. And it'll go right till the end of the year. That's why when we come down to the end of the year, it's like kind of the territory of the age of Aquarius, when the old structures will be completely disassembled, I guess we'd use that. So, Capricorn, I don't know if people know of the Alice Paley, Helena Blavatsky, and all those people, these esoteric women from the old days. But she said that Capricorn was the sign. Capricorn was a sign of concretized energy, which is a material thing. And for example, supposing I was the ruler of the world and I could apportion to everybody a different assignment, this person was best as an artist, this person was best as a lawyer, and all of that. If somebody could do that and everybody was at the place where they were supposed to be in terms of their ego and identity in the world, that's Capricorn, then all the finances would flow, wonderfully. But what we have right now, we have enormous selfishness at the core of all these structures. But because of these aspects, they're going to be broken down. You're going to see many news items that they can't hide anymore. And then what are the people going to do? That's why I figure that people are going to rise up with that in mind. So anyway,
Can I ask a question? Does this just relate to governments, or do you think it could also relate to religions as well?
oh yeah, religion definitely, it does relate to religion too. It's kind of it's that yeah. How do you answer that one? It's that which is concretized energy. That's what I was going with. Yeah,
So any religion who has compromised energy they'll also like
right.
too. Okay.
Right.
Good.
What comes to mind when you say that, it's if you're familiar with when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane praying, blood was coming out, he didn't want to go to the cross. And then Satan's coming along and said, I'll give you the whole world. And he rejected it, right? And so the world doesn't have a chance under this new energy. And I mean, you can almost say a new Messiah is coming in at the end of the year because of this stuff. So I want to say that.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
I like what you're saying.
I know, me too. It's very hopeful.
Oh yeah. Oh, you gotta. Yeah. Well, that's me, right? I mean, I feel like I go down in a trench somewhere some days. I'm down in the trench and I'm in a dark tunnel and I'm saying, well, that's not cool. It's kind of interesting to be in a dark tunnel. Then all of a sudden you see a little opening in the cave and you fly out into the light. That's the hopefulness because you see it's not the way it is. It's like a big illusion, even though it isn't, but it is. It's an illusion. So, no, I would only think, I think you guys know that I call myself a paradisiologist, which is like if I had a choice of my future, it wouldn't be Armageddon, it wouldn't be hell, it wouldn't be any of the bad things. I want paradise to come in. So that's how I live. That's what I expect.
Right, yeah.
And, you can have any number of religions can probably, reorganize themselves around agreeing with that. I still have a painting in mind that I wanted to do, which is, it's Eve in the garden, and she's about ready to pick the apple, but Adam, her beloved mate, comes along and puts his hand around her waist carefully. No, honey, no, don't pick the apple. And they go walk off and take a walk in the rest of paradise. They never pick the apple. Then what happens? The world is paradise. It's only because she picked the apple, which you can argue what that really means, but I don't want her to pick the apple. So anyway, Nostradamus was Capricorn, and people miss up on him because they think he was foretelling the end of the world. Well, they miss one point. He was a physician, and he saw the way people live, and he said he was trying to tell people the way that they live. If they obey the rules of the spirit world and so on, it'll be paradise. But if you don't, the world will end in destruction. They miss that point. He wasn't just saying, oh, the world's going to end. He's saying, if you don't get it together, it will. Kind of. There's a fine thing about that. So, anyway, a little digression. But, yeah. No, the cardinal cross is a movement cross. The fixed cross is like Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo. And then there's the mutable cross, Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, and Virgo. So, yeah. So anyway, this is the 1 month that we go from Virgo to Libra, which is the sign of relationship. So when we finally get to September 22nd and the galactic center alignment, I had this vision that the whole world, like it used to be somewhere in the old days, people join hands together and form a circle around the earth and everybody loves one another. I don't know why that couldn't happen, but that would be the best time for that to happen when we come into September 22nd and we go into October, because the energy would be lining us up with the spirit of the universe. Who doesn't want to get lined up with that, right? So anyway, I get all animated about this. Yeah.
I love that. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, just don't let me do an accent. That's all.
Okay, so there's another question from Nia.
Oh.
It feels like there's been a power, control, freedom triangle playing out globally.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard that the power grabs won't hold the way they could decades ago. But I think you've kind of already addressed that, because you said that they won't be able to hold. The structure is going to be falling.
Well, that's precisely right. I mean, it's because it's impossible for it to continue. And then I go into the thought of how our solar system is in a new part of space anyway, and we're learning a new ecosystem. That's why nobody understands anything, because they're all different rules. But if the Earth people don't adapt their physical body to the new cosmic space, we won't be a planet or anywhere or solar system. So the old structures cannot survive that. And if there's anybody has any love in their heart, and anybody who's interested in leading a spiritual life and being one with God and whatever else you want to say, then that's what you have to do. You have to imagine your body. I know that, I don't know, I didn't take any picture in January, but if I took a picture of me in January and I took a picture of me today, it would be totally different physically. Because every day the energy works you and sculpts you into a way that will adapt you into cosmic space. It can't go with the old system. So it's like, it's a no-brainer. There's no way that it can survive. It'll crumble like, a lot of astrologers are now predicting lots of earthquakes and things like that. That's too bad. I don't know if that's going to happen, but probably it's already been happening in a way. But anyway, my point is that the scenario of the future has to embrace the new lightness of the physical body, which is a Capricorn theme. Every Capricorn person has the ability to form their bodies in light. I'll put it that way. I usually use the example of a ballet dancer like Nureyev or something, and every time you see a ballet, they're stretched out. They can't get out of their body more and still be in it. So that's a Capricorn theme. You're maximizing your physical reality on the planet. Once you don't have the physicality, you're in another dimension in space and time. So what we're doing right now, if I'm making the movie of the Earth coming up this year and into next year, I'm creating an entirely new structural human beings. Human beings' bodies will change. It's like a science fiction story. And we've already seen the challenge with the virus stuff and all of that. Who knows? That is so mixed together with all the governments and the power people and all of that. You don't even want to sort that out. But if you were to keep in mind that human beings were evolving to a higher level in their literal structural form, that's a Capricorn theme. So I'm waiting for the gurus and the masters of the world to kind of evolve and become the people on the podium and not the politicians. And somebody can lead us into the world of the initiate. That's Capricorn energy. Rudolf Steiner said that Capricorn was the first sign of the zodiac, even though it was in the wintertime. But anyway, if you see my point, if I'm a designer and I have an airplane this way, but then 50 years later, if I design it with the lightness and the wings and everything, it's much better, it can fly better. That's what's happening to human beings. That's why we're all massing together now.
And all that energy that's coming in this month, that's actually helping us with that right now.
Oh, yeah.
It's maximizing that light that how we're changing within our bodies.
Right, especially with the Virgo part. Virgo is like also the, when you see the Statue of Liberty, that's a Virgo image, upholding the virtue. In fact, I've been studying the United States chart. There's many different versions of the United States chart. But if I were to pull out a chart of the United States, it would be on September 11th. It was born, not July 4th. And because that's a lot of reasons why I would say that, but it had to do with the Masonic astrologers when they were conceiving the right time for the colonies to rebel. When they were setting the cornerstone of the capital, they decided that the planet Uranus, which is the rebel planet, the radical, which was just discovered in 1781, was going to be in conjunction with Regulus, the star, which is the king star. And as it was setting in the west, they set the cornerstone of the building. And in the colonies, all 13 colonies melted the statue of King George in unison. It was to take the old king out. All right. So to me, the Virgo is really the esoteric sign of this country, the purity and helping the people of everywhere to heal and all that. So, but yes, but that's why once a year Virgo comes in, and it's like you have a classroom, and Virgo comes in. Well, now we have somebody who really knows what they're talking about, and coming in, we're gonna sharpen you right up, kind of like a spiritual military. We're gonna make sure everybody's clean and whole and get the right ideas. So that's really helping out all these Capricorn planets. And you got Uranus and Taurus as well. So it's a win-win thing this month. You have to suffer a few of those squares, but that's okay. That makes it interesting. The trines are there to claim. So yeah, so it's going to create an entirely new government, political, spiritual, religious reality, I guess. Is that what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And so that kind of leads right into Nia's last question, which I think you kind of just answered. In all of these, what are we being called to during this shift? And what specific energies should we be aware of this month to help us implement that? But I think you just answered that.
Okay.
Because we're aligning, it sounds like all these energies that are coming in this month, because depending on how you look at it, there's going to be lots of change and there could be some disruption, but it's all good. as long as we stay in our spiritual, the truth of who we are spiritually, and use that energy to maximize it within our bodies as we keep moving into these higher fields of light, and then how we implement it as we move forward.
Well, it's a new collectivity that's being born. That's the whole idea, especially with all those planets in one sign and everything else going on the retrograde. That's what it's going to be like when we finally get into the Aquarius part, which is then the reformer, the awakened body of the earth. You know, I don't know if how many people understand the Aquarius age principle, but when Jesus was born, that meant that all the signs and the stars, the constellations were lined up. So if you're a Pisces as a sign, you were also lined up with the star system, Pisces. But over 2,000 years, there's a thing called precession, and every 72 years it moves 1 degree. So now we're at the place where we're at Aquarius, and for the next 2,000 years. So Pisces certainly has had its. Hold on. Sorry. I'm such a busy executive here, you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, President, what was it last time? Okay. All right.
So it looks like we have, are you still, okay, so it looks like we have a question from Amelia. Brian, can you talk about the cardinal cross? When is that happening?
Ooh. Amelia, she's the Aries. I don't see her face. Amelia, are you there somewhere? I can't hear you, so, all right. Well, yeah, cardinal cross, turning points.
I'm here, Brian. I just a lot of noise, so I have it on mute.
Oh, okay. All right, so that's, I know you're there. Okay. All right, I love this question because you do a natal chart, you have rising signs, you have midheaven signs. They're called angles of the chart. And angles are where the power is. They're like turning points in the chart when you're doing it. So planets that are near an angle take on more power in the chart. So cardinal signs are like angular signs. So in a way, they're the more, you can't make it, every cross has its own power, but the cardinal signs are dynamic in the sense they call them executive signs, which means they're movement. So when we come to Libra, which is the equinox, it's a turning point, which basically, even though it's heading to fall, you're going towards winter, you're returning towards winter. When we come to winter, we turn to spring, spring turns to summer, summer goes to fall. So they're turning points in our consciousness. You know, obviously when Aries comes in the springtime, that's selfhood and starting a new cycle. Cancer consolidates in the summer, the family, and then Libra, now we're going out into the world, the social world, and then it comes up. So the cardinal signs are movement signs, which means that cardinal people should always be executives, make decisions. You know, it's like move things along because you're a turning point in the cosmos. Signs that are like fixed signs, like Taurus and Scorpio, are more stabilizing signs. They don't move it as much as they stabilize something that's been done. So they used to say like Aries, Dame Rudia talked about Aries being the architect and Taurus was the builder. So Aries is like an idea person, but you go build it. And then Libra, you know, here's the law, but you know, you go and enforce it. So each one of the 4 points are powerful because they enact the drama of life like the seasons. They're the points of the season, right? So you're in Aries, Amelia. So we always, whenever, how many Aries we get out there? I think we have one.
I am as well, Brian.
I know.
Charlotte.
Oh, so that means we know of 3 for sure, because so is
Both
Diana.
of them Aries.
Or Daniela was. Daniela
Can you
was,
hear me?
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Charlotte.
Oh, no, yeah, 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. Where was I going with that? Okay, if I meet an Aries person, I know that I'm going to be accountable to being my true self, because Aries is a sign of self, okay? So if I meet an Aries, they know exactly who they are. There's no question about who they are. So if I meet a Cancerian person, that's another cardinal sign, I know about my soul. Ask a Cancer about your soul, because they hold the soul within their membrane. You ask a Libra person, well, what's fair? Well, I don't know, what do you think we should do? Because Libra has the we consciousness. Aries is I am, and Libra's the opposite, well, what do we do together? It's balancing out your partner. And of course, Capricorn is opposite to Cancer, and that's the sign of leading out into the world. So Capricorn identifies itself in the world with a form of identity. So Cancer goes way in, Capricorn goes way out, Aries stays to himself, Libra goes over here, but they all blend together and they start mixing into this dynamic. So whenever I want to know about a relationship, I go to Libra. If I want to know about being myself, I go to the Aries. Right, Charlotte? Well, at least you're laughing anyway.
That would be right.
Yep. So anyway, no, every sign is beautiful. So there's no in the old days, the books that were written back in the 1800s, there was a lot of prejudice about certain signs. You wouldn't want to be some sign, but the prejudice is gone now. Nobody talks about, if you're a Pisces, forget it, in the old books. But today, Pisces is seen as a beautiful, all-encompassing, fruitful sign. Remember when I started, I was talking about the duality of the sign and the two fishes going this way and that way and all of that. By the way, if you I don't want to say this one. In the old films, like World War II films, they always had the spies going into the discotheque. They had to exchange something with the other spy or whatever. But the only reason they could do it in a discotheque is because there was lots of color and glamour. That's a Pisces theme. If you protect yourself spiritually, you need color and glamour to do so, because Pisces is very vulnerable to the world, and anybody can take from Pisces very easily because they're so compassionate. I remember one time there was a Pisces lady I knew, and I had a piece of gold somehow. I had a little piece of gold, and I could talk to any other sign, and nobody would mention the piece of gold except the Pisces. The first thing they would say, "I feel as good as gold today." I'm going, "What?" And then they say, "What's the price of the gold market today?" I don't know. Hey, look at my gold earring. And Pisces has the ability to go and get everything in you. It's like it's an occult sign or a hidden sign. They can go right into your soul. So you want a good Pisces to hang out with, not a bad one, because the good Pisces will explore everything, and be able to pull it out from you. So no secrets from Pisces, and yet they don't even know it themselves sometimes. So anyway, so Pisces goes out, and now we have a question after that, or was that Nia's last question?
That was Nia's last question.
And here she is sitting somewhere in wherever, right?
In her silent retreat, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was, about the specific energy should we be aware of, and then help us implement that. But I think you did cover that when you were talking about the full moon.
Well, what I really want to emphasize with that in mind is like kind of like a plasma thing, a quantum thing, where a lot of times I'll just see the Earth and I'll see everybody on it. I can tell you what's happening in Chicago right now. It's like a remote sensing or something. But I can see the Earth like fibrillating, I guess is the right word. It's like energized, it's magnetized, it's ready for something brand new. It's ready for the next step. And that's why I don't think it can wait much longer. So when I said Jupiter and Saturn moving forward this month, is really going to happen at the end of the month, that the election's already decided, is because of the superpowers, the powers of the universe have already decided how it's going to work out. And they're just going to make the moves, to complete that. Can you imagine what next year is going to be like? There's one thing that whoever becomes the president will have to deal with the Pluto return now. Pluto return is when the country was born, assuming it was July 4th, or even September 11th, it's still the same idea. Pluto was in Capricorn at, I think, 27 degrees of Capricorn. But Pluto was like 24 degrees of Capricorn. So for the first time in history, Pluto will be returning to the same place as it was when we signed the Declaration and began the country. So it's called a Pluto return. It takes 248 years to go around. So whoever's going to be in power as a president or whatever is going to have to understand that that's a revolutionary planet. And revolution in this country, in a way, we haven't really ended the American Revolution. It will complete itself in about a year and a half from now when that happens, that Pluto return. Pluto is a beautiful planet. I love Pluto because I call it the pomegranate planet. It has lots of seeds in it. Back in the late 70s and the early 90s and all that area, Pluto was actually closer to Earth than Neptune. And they said that was the time of the avatar, when the energy of Pluto brought in seeds to all of those, light beings, just for the future. So when Pluto gets activated, as we'll be doing as we get into, let's say there's an election, there's a president, and then the year 20, the next year, and then by we get to that last part of that year, the revolution will be complete. So I'm not going to get too political, but the current president does have the star rising, the king star rising. So whether you like him or you don't, he's like the king. So if it's like when the colonies were going on, we had King George, and they wanted to eliminate the king. A lot of people want to eliminate the king, but that's the energy. We're not really completely America yet, I guess we'll call it that. So it's going to be interesting. I could go into a whole other category of ancient signs. For example, there are two great white lights that go around the earth. One goes from Iceland down through Maine, down through the center of the country, down through Mexico, and goes around the earth. And then there's another one that goes from Vancouver to the Bermuda Triangle and around the earth. And around those two white line circles, the new earth is forming, literally. And so the actual physical form of the earth is about ready to align itself with this fourth-dimensional light. So that's a whole other thing. That's what I mean about the earth people. You can see it everywhere. I can see it. Everybody's expecting. Even when I talk to the younger people, they want something good to happen. They're eager for good, not for bad. They're all like brand new and everything, ready to do good stuff on the planet. So I hope that's going to happen. So anyway.
So to kind of wrap this all up with all this amazing information that you've been giving us, and I'm so happy that we're recording this so that we could all look at it later if we want to. So
Okay.
what are your parting words? Because I know with all this change, I just know that a lot of people that I work with, a lot of times we fall into divisiveness or fear. And all this amazing information you're giving us about, the new collectivity is being born and it's maximizing the light within us. But as we go about our everyday life, what is your advice for us to be able to stay in this place of evolution, or being able to maximize this light that's coming forth and not fall into a place of fear of the change that's happening?
Well, I kind of almost classical about that answer. To thine own self be true, right? I mean, so you have to really know who you really are, because you're designed to be something on this planet. However you see it from the universal, from God's standpoint, we all have a plan. That's what an astrology chart is. It's a blueprint of who you really are. If you're doing things that are not you to do, then you're not going to contribute. But at the same time, it's an evolutionary step. So there was something else I wanted to say about that, because we are basically on the verge of interacting with other cultures from other solar systems. So we all have to be kind of like one family. I think of the joke where all the family is squabbling in the house, and arguing, and then somebody comes to the door, a famous celebrity or something, and they all go to the door and they're all dressed up neat and they're all happy and smiling because it's a celebrity. Well, that's what our planet is getting ready to do. We've got to kind of put on new clothes and comb your hair or something, and be ready to meet with our alien neighbors, you might say. That play that was Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. It'll probably be an alien now, because gee, Mom, I met a new person. Well, we'll bring him over. He comes from like it's not just science fiction. So. But in terms of electromagnetic energy, I like to think of protoplasm, and I like to think of high-level creativity is what we're all supposed to be doing. Even Buckminster Fuller, the famous architect, said we're only working at 10% of our creativity, and I think that's a shame, I suppose you call it. So I try to hit at least 40%. And I try to do at least 40% of the day that's creative. So creativity is a big expression. And I'm going to focus on that last part about the new moon coming up. I was standing the full moon tonight, but the new moon is that Kazemi thing. It's heart-centered. So we talk about heart empowerment. I think it's really what's true to your heart that's going to answer that for you. And, biblically, they always say perfect love casts out fear. I use that as much as I can. It's perfect love means, yeah, I really do like to ride bicycles, or I really do like to climb mountains. And if you're doing that, they have nothing to worry about. It's
I love that.
perfect.
That's, yeah, that's perfect. I love that. That was really helpful. Thank you
Ah.
so much.
Very good.
So does anybody else have any other questions? We're just about at an hour.
I think you asked a really good question last time, Barbara. That would have been my question too.
Oh,
So
well, thank you. Yeah, that was very helpful, that recap, because sometimes when you get so much information, I like to get kind of the recap of
Right.
what
Yeah.
what we can do.
You're Capricorn unity there.
Yeah.
Great. What is that? Great minds think alike.
That's right. Okay, so if no one else, do you have any final words, Brian, before we sign off?
When in doubt, eat. No,
Okay, there you go. All right.
that's my motto.
So thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you so much, Brian, for all this amazing insight. I'm really excited for this month to come. So I really, really appreciate it. And thank you all for joining. And we'll be uploading this to
Thank
the
you.
Human Harmonic
That was
YouTube.
great, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
Brian.
Bye. Thank you.
We'll see you all
Bye.
next month.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
See you.
Bye.
Okay.
See what happens. Okay, bye-bye now. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.